Welcome to Salon Lounge at Dixon Place here in New York City. And I am Heidi Russell, founder of International Women Artists Salon. And it's my pleasure to welcome everybody for another showcase. So we do this monthly on the third Saturday of every month. And we're looking forward to a new season in 2016, which we just signed up with Dixon. Thank you, Dixon. And Ellie Coven, the founder here. And it'll be mostly the third Saturday of every month in 2016, but there will be a couple dates, so please follow along our fan page at International Women Artists Salon or on Dixon's website to find out when our shows might be altered during 2016. But the majority of them are on the third Saturday of the month. So please do come out every month or as much as you can. And we'd love to see you and help us build the movement of raising up women's artistry around the world. And normally our Salon Lounge showcase has 4 different artists that present. One of a video and film, one a literature reading, one a theater reading or performance, and one other type of performance such as music, dance, or comedy, multimedia, etc. And to kind of give a bit of a smorgasbord of artistry, types of artistry that's being produced by contemporary women artists out there. And we also have a radio show every week on Thursdays on City World Radio Network, which is an internet radio. And it shows Thursday nights at 8 p.m. and also rebroadcasts at 10 p.m. And all the shows are available on demand, so we have almost, I think we're probably reaching about 80 shows. So some many great projects that are more than likely still going on. So we encourage you to, when you're bored, just hook onto City World Radio and listen to all the shows and get inspired and find collaborators and learn about what women creatives are doing around the world. And again, that's all the different disciplines. So those are 2 of our main series that we have going on, but we also have Salon Solo, which happens up at our partner organization, Dixon Place, our partner venue. I'm sorry, we are at Dixon Place. Salon Solo takes place at Producers Club, which is on West 44th Street at 9th Avenue. And our current artist is Jeannie Chiang, and she has a show called No is the Answer, which is basically a series of work that speaks to her surviving a stroke and a heart attack, and not expected to live, actually. And so she has a series of multimedia works, but what's being shown at Producers Club right now is her 2D work, and that's going up through December 6th, and then we'll have a new artist. So that's ongoing, Producers Club, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So whenever you're up there or you want to take a special trip, check out those amazing visual artists that are showcasing their work. So without further ado, because we want to make sure we have enough time for this great special showcase that we have tonight, and give us a little bit of time to have an open discussion about this important topic. And also, first, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Matt, our bartender out there. Hi, Matt. So if anybody wants to get up during the show and grab a drink, we would like to patron Dixon and his tip pocket as well. All the proceeds that the bar brings in does go to Dixon Place's not-for-profit to help provide a venue like this for emerging artists. So thank you, Matt. And yes, so we'd like to have a theme as much as possible. So tonight's theme is centered around violence against women and girls. I know it's a deep topic, but it's important, and we'll probably be doing ongoing showcases and series. We also are doing a series on body image, and it's great to have one of our curators here tonight, Karen Shapiro, and Maciel Hernandez also is co-curator of that series, and that's mostly taking place on our radio show. So these will all link up together and bring important issues and what artists are doing to help raise the bar of awareness and helping the fight for women's rights and protections, and to have a fair life out there. So, so tonight again, and I try not to say too much. The Salon Showcase tonight is curated by an emerging organization called Brooklyn Repertory. And Brooklyn Repertory was founded in 2014 by friends who wanted to change the way race was being portrayed on stage, focusing on works by established contemporary American playwrights and classical plays. Brooklyn Repertory deliberately casts actors of every ethnicity in various roles. An emphasis on multiracial casting ensures that actors are not reduced to tokenism and creates opportunities for actors to play roles they are usually overlooked for. And as a multiracial company, they believe in collaboration between all races, and everyone is welcome to become a part of the change. And you can find more about them at www.brooklynrepertory.com. That's REPERTORY. And you can learn more about them not only on their website, but on our fan page, International Women Artists Salon, so that you can follow their work. So, and three of the amazing women that are part of that repertory are here tonight. Elizabeth Eng, Ilinka Tuvin, and Paula Frieden. And Elizabeth is artistic director and founder of Brooklyn Repertory. Again, it's a New York City-based company, and she's also a New York City-based actress, and she's passionate about creating work that pursues humanism. And her credits include A Book by Its Cover at La Mama, Good, which was at Hudson Shakespeare, SKA Days, which was at Chains Theater Festival, and Here We Are, which was NYTW. And Ilinka is an actress, producer, also at Brooklyn Repertory, and CEO of New York City-based production house Pretty Peasants. New York City credits include Boss Festival, On Guard Arts, Sick at Crosby Street Plays, and Disco Love at Dixon Place here. And Paula is a Swedish-born actress based here in New York City. She previously worked for the United Nations in Sudan before moving to New York to attend the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. Her New York credits include The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, which was at Marilyn Monroe Theater, and Dramage at the American Tremel Theater. And they're going to tell you a little bit more later about their fundraising campaign that's going to be going on, so I'll save that for them. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Brooklyn Repertory, who's going to be bringing together a showcase, which Elizabeth is going to tell us more about. And we encourage you to stay afterwards, and we're going to have a little discussion, open discussion if anybody wants to, or we'll just mix and mingle. So whatever happens, we invite you. And for all of our live streamers out there, after Elizabeth speaks, we will be unfortunately having to turn off live stream because some of the stories are copyrighted, and we don't have permission to put them up. But do follow along, and Elizabeth's going to tell you more how you get involved. So without further ado, Elizabeth Eng.
Is this okay?
Yes.
Hi everyone. I'm just gonna actually just put this down, just project. Thank you. So tonight, the theme of the showcase is violence against women and girls awareness. And when we define violence against women, often we emphasize on stories about physical violence, like sexual assault, rape, genital mutilation, and domestic abuse. And I believe that those are desperate situations that need to be fought. However, tonight we also wanted to highlight other more subversive forms of violence. For example, denying girls their right to education. We believe that is an act of violence. When society places a high value on a woman's physical looks and therefore encourages her to do the bloody act of plastic surgery to change her looks to conform to societal demands, that's also an act of violence. Lastly, abuse in relationships is not just solely physical violence. Very often, the abuse is also emotional and verbal. So tonight, what we wish to do is not to give you any preachy statements, but we're going to narrate a couple of first-person stories. And so we just wanted to highlight the human experience behind what happened.
Child marriage is an unfortunate yet common occurrence in most underprivileged countries all over the world.
Once married, girls are expected to follow their wifely duties and therefore quit school. India, Cambodia, Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, Chad, Haiti, Egypt, Guatemala, Nigeria, Bangladesh. Here we don't have a right to education. Here we can't follow our dreams of being doctors or lawyers. Here we're mostly wives, followed by mothers. People say I'm a typical 17-year-old girl. I like music and movies, and I'm an avid follower of soap operas. I have chores to do during the day, and I dream of becoming a doctor. I live in a small room in one of the poorest parts of Dhaka, capital of Bangladesh, but I live with the same dreams and aspirations as everyone else. However, 2 years ago I got married, and 8 months ago I gave birth to a daughter. I met Ronnie, who was 4 years older than me, and we started dating. My friends and family were putting enormous pressure on me to marry because Ronnie was an orphan, and in my country, they believe that orphans should be helped as much as possible. They told me he'd commit suicide if I didn't run away with him. So we got married. It's nothing new for my family, though. My mom got married at 13. This happens a lot here, and the saddest thing is that you have to take care of your family and there's no need for education. I haven't been to school since I got married. I have some friends who are going to college now, and I feel bad that I can't go with them. I used to really enjoy my school life. My teacher used to call me a singing bird because I would always sing and dance. I get up at 5 a.m. for morning prayer. I start cooking and go to fetch water from the tube well nearby. I look after the baby and make food and then think about what food to make for lunch. By 7 p.m. I try to finish all of my cooking and household chores and then watch TV and watch soap operas. One show I watch is Top Poor, Too Poor. It's the story of two sisters. I aspire to be like Too Poor. She's the good one, the responsible wife and daughter-in-law who helps everyone when they're in a bad situation. I have to look after my husband as well, give him his food. He often nags, especially when he's angry. I don't want my daughter to take the same path I did. When she's 18, she'll be mature enough to understand the depths of relationships and her responsibilities to her household and her husband. When you get married young, you don't understand those things. If I met another girl who was thinking of getting married like I did, I try and discourage her. It's like if you want to buy a nice dress, maybe your husband won't be able to buy it for you, but if you study and get a good job, then you can do it for yourself. If I could start my life again, there's no way I'd get married so young. I'd stand on my own 2 feet, become independent, have good health, be with my family and friends.
Where I am from, education is disregarded by so many. Everyone wants to be successful, drive flashy cars, wear the most expensive clothes, and carry the latest phones. But I believe that education is the essential for everyone. It is education that helps people to earn respect and recognition. In my village, which is in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria, hawking is seen as more productive than educating a child. Kids are married off at very early age too. You will see a 12-year-old who already has a baby and is tied down with so many responsibilities. In my community, if a parent allows their female child to reach the age of 15 in the house, they are seen as irresponsible and their children will be insulted. At 15, single girl is considered a disappointment because all of her friends are married. No man in the village will want to marry her. I was 14 years old when our village school reopened. Most parents only sent their male children, but my dad made up his mind to send whoever of his children that he could, because he himself had dropped out of school when he was very young. I was the only girl in the entire school. By the time I reached 6 years of primary school, all my friends had been married off by my relatives, kept pressuring my dad to marry me off too. They said sending me to school was a bad decision because educated children end up spoiled and irresponsible, but he refused. I've chosen to study health. My community has a large population and an unending problem of early marriage, which means that children are born every day, but there's only one hospital with 6 wards and few attendants. It's more like a pharmacy or clinic because only minor injuries can be treated. For most problems, they just prescribe Panadol, drips, and injections without finding out what the patient's problems is. Lives are at risks, and that touches my heart. When I find my studies, I will go back to my village and make a change. To help with the reconstruction of the hospitals, treat as many people as possible, assist with the pregnant, old, and helpless. I believe that with good health, we can all work and achieve our dreams. This is the goal that I've set for myself, and by God's grace, nothing will stop me from achieving it. I would like to use this as an opportunity to advise and plead any parent who is reading this to allow their children, especially girls, to go to school. Those who have been lucky to go to school should please try to share their knowledge that they have acquired with siblings, friends, and whoever they can reach out to. We should recognize that the best gifts that any parents can give their child is education.
Plastic surgery has become more prevalent and commonplace, and the majority of plastic surgery patients are women. Women are arguably held to a higher standard of perfection and scrutiny, and as women, we've all had that one moment where we first discovered our first wrinkle and are terrified of what that means. Sadly, a woman's physical appearance is still her main source of value in society, and this pressure to carve your body to conform is also a form of violence. I was born in Colombia, but moved to New Jersey when I was 9. So last year, I took a trip to my home country. By the time I reached Colombia, I was 2 months into my journey along the Pan-American Highway. Every day, a different part of the 48,000-kilometer network of roads across the Americas was a place that I called home. Along the section that also makes up the South American Backpacker Trail, from Tierra del Fuego to the Panama Canal, there was one constant. All the guys you meet have one thing in common: a love for Colombian women. Everywhere, low-cut tops reveal perfect boobs and skinny black jeans sort of J-Lo designed bombs. This is Colombia, where cosmetic surgery is a part of the nation's culture. In Colombia, there are zero qualms attached to cosmetic surgery. This is a place founded on the industry of perfection. There are over 500 clinics in Colombia, making it the 5th highest nation of people going under the knife per capita. This huge stat ranks it above the United States. A woman I met told me that she had her ears pinned back at the age of 12. It's a tough time for anyone when puberty begins, but she told me in Colombia it's far worse. Societal pressure is placed on those little imperfections where, in another culture, it might be considered a cute feature. It's a place where growing sexual tension is met with an even greater need for a sexual image. And what I was taken aback most was that this comes with full parental support. Getting plastic surgery as a graduation gift is considered rite of passage here. The obsession to look beautiful is rooted in recent history. During the late 80s and the early 90s, the infamous drug lord Pablo Escobar and his Medellin cartel ruled Colombia with an iron fist. At the height of his power, it is estimated that he controlled 80% of the world's cocaine market, and was listed as one of Forbes magazine's 227 billionaires. The lifestyle was glamorous, and so were his women, the narco novias. Escobar and his henchmen were obsessed with the body image of a woman that would put Barbie to shame. His all-encompassing influence shifted down to the ordinary people so that he defined beauty in Colombia. For the women who wanted in, cosmetic surgery became less about fixing what your mom gave you and more about buying social status. Today in Colombia, the cartels have lost their power, but this idea of beauty and what it can get you remains. In Escobar's hometown of Medellin, there's even a free cosmetic surgery program on offer to the city's poorest. Medical students are able to practice their skills while people can get the breasts and bottoms immortalized in Colombian pop culture. One of the most popular telenovelas from the past few years was Sin tetas no hay paraíso, which translates to mean, without tits, there is no paradise. I decided to opt in and get some corrections done myself. Just prior to getting my corneas detached and a laser sent through my eyes, I had a moment to talk to my doctor. I asked him, why is it that Colombians have such a desire for cosmetic surgery? And he said, I think they do it because they can do it cheaply and easily, and they all want to follow what their image of beauty is.
There's this misconception that domestic violence is some relic of the past, outdated, and irrelevant in many of our modern lives. But if we stop looking for only bruises and we just start listening, we realize that some of our closest friends and loved ones may be the subject of verbal abuse. This nice-looking man was sitting by himself to the left of me at the bar, and my friend and I, we started talking to him. He was charming, good-looking, and a business professional. During that time, I had a medical situation happen to me where I had lost my home, my career, and my finances. And I was working a job that was below my educational level, and I wasn't quite feeling the same self-esteem level that I used to do. And I was at a very vulnerable place. I was down on myself, and this man, he showed interest in me. And he also had a great sense of humor. We started dating immediately, and I felt excited. I finally met somebody, and somebody that seemed to be a really great guy. We dated for 10 months. And within that time, I started slowly but surely to be exposed to different parts of his personality. I wanted to deny many parts of some of the red flags that I saw in him, because I felt that I might have already fallen in love with him. I really didn't want to face that there could be these flaws, and then I would have to leave the relationship. Then I thought I'd finally find the man of my dreams. There were so many wonderful things about this man. He was intelligent, loving, charming, good looking. He had a very nice body too, and we had a great sexual connection. But about 4 months into the relationship, after he had already won my heart, a few digs or small put-downs started to come my way. He knew I had to move in with my parents due to my medical situation. And one of his first comments to put me down was, ironically, when we were having a good time. And he was getting close to me and he said, "Susan, who lives with her parents," in a very condescending and hurtful tone. I asked him why he said that. And he said, "I don't know why I said it. Sometimes when I get close to someone, I say something that puts them down and puts them away from me." And then he apologized.
I was hurt and taken aback by his comment, but there was so much good in him already that I just pushed that comment aside. I look back at my journal now, however, and I see that I journaled that I was concerned that he might have emotional or verbal abuse tactics within him, or he was pushing me away because he was afraid of closeness. Months started going by, and between many of the good times, there were put-downs here and there. Going to a restaurant where there was this table and a chair near the wall, he says to me, "Why don't you sit there in the corner and put a hat on it?" Like I was an idiot or something. Other comments like idiot, crazy bitch, whore came later as the intensity of our relationship got worse due to the verbal abuse and other factors. I kept staying with him because I just wanted to believe that this man who I had met that evening still was the one that he could change. I didn't want to accept the fact that he became this other person at times, but the truth is he had. He also told me, "I don't care about your feelings," or "stuff your feelings inside," or "shut up." Others were, "I hope your dog falls dead. You were just a good fuck. Go suck a dick. You do have a nice ass, but so did the girl that I checked out with and the girls in the porn I watch. You only have $5 in your bank account. At least I have a job," when I had lost my career due to a medical situation. Over time, I realize now that he manipulated me to make me think that I was the reason for his emotional or verbal abuse. He would say things like, "You pushed me to say it. You bring it out in me. If you don't stop, I will say something mean. I don't want to be a mean person, but you make me that way." It was always my fault. So you see, I started to think that there was something wrong with me.
I know that sounds crazy, but I believe that he has made me sort of crazy. I started having outbursts of anger and rage after the several months of his verbal and emotional abuse, and when I would react in those ways, he would then start calling me crazy, and then feel there was justification on why he was acting the way that he was to me. I read later that it was normal for me to have these outbursts because, after all, I was being abused, and I was only human, and a good person who gives all the time can only take so much. A couple of times when I was hurt, he tried to minimize my experience to say that it isn't that bad, but wasn't being there for me or taking into account what my experience was for me. He had also previously referred to his ex-wife as a heartless hoe, and yes, this was a red flag to me then, but once again, I didn't want to listen to it because all the other times were good. I knew then, when he called his ex that he could call me that, and yes, he did end up calling me a whore. Funny how that intuition thing is usually right, huh? He once told me that his ex-wife's hair fell out all the time due to an autoimmune disorder at her work. But I knew in my gut that it was also due to having to deal with his emotional abuse. You see, this man and I, we went to church together. We even went to see a counselor together because I cared enough for him during that short time that I was with him to do anything I could to make it work. But the sad part is, he was not in a place to be ready to change, and I had to finally wake up to that fact that I could not change him or make him ready to be in a place to change.
Many people would say a leopard does not change its spots. And unfortunately, being the ex-triathlete and ex-sales representative that I was, I had so much tenacity within me. I thought I could somehow do this due to part of the love that I had for these men. But the truth is, a leopard does not change its spots. Or if it does, it needs to do it on its own when it is ready. I couldn't continue to stay around with this man who, 1, wasn't ready to change, 2, gave me no solution for how he was going to change, 3, kept apologizing each time that it kept occurring, and 4, couldn't subject myself to losing me and my spirit due to his problems, which were not mine. I couldn't take his put-downs or abuse any further. And when the next Christmas rolled around, and when he was unappreciative of my gifts and made hurtful comments when he received something from me each time, I realized, wow, how can a person truly be this way? This is not me, this is him. So the greatest gift that I'm going to try to give myself this Christmas is to walk away from him and give myself the Christmas gift of my spirit back. There is a heavy price to pay for losing my spirit. The year 2015 has been a hurtful one, and one that I will never forget. And I cannot go in 2016 by not being true to myself. He has abused me long enough.
So that sort of wraps up our narratives. We also wanted to touch on a slight topic that's slightly different. But we didn't really know how to find a way to fit into all of this. So we're just gonna read a short essay about violence against women on screen. Because if you've been watching Game of Thrones and what other TV show Vikings, increasingly violence against women has become a plot point instead of discussing about the actual violence. Once a woman's been raped, she's just thrown off stage. It's not a big deal. It's just to forward the male protagonist's storyline. So we found an article that discusses about the sexualization of violence, and we like to have a small talk about it. But first, we're going to show you some Game of Thrones clips. We wanted to show the scenes of violence against women, but we realized that should also come with a trigger warning. And fortunately, YouTube actually bans a lot of those videos. So we just found one with the generic violence.
The big question in the media is, do we need to see instances of sexual assault in order to have a deeper understanding of the show? Truthfully, that's the wrong question. We don't need to see any scenes of violence. We don't need to see guts spilling in horror movies, limbs torn off in war movies, or people shot in action movies. Anything can be made implicit. The thing is, we want to see it. Violent scenes are included not because that is how the world works, because it heightens the drama of the show. Once we've become desensitized, scenes must become more graphic to have the same effect. The more we see rape on television, the more it becomes expected and normalized. Instead, we should ask ourselves, do these scenes perpetuate a culture that encourages violence against women? There is sexual violence in the world, and many insist that this is a good enough reason for it to appear on TV. This would imply that TV shows actually relate to us what is really going on outside of our living room. Television is not about reality, it's about perception. While some scenes make us feel uncomfortable, there is a line directors don't often cross. Certain things for this culture are too hard to watch. Rape portrayed on the screen is not one of those things. It has become normalized. When a scene encourages male sexual aggression and violence against women, when rape is used as a dramatic plot device and plays upon society's already misconstrued rape stereotypes or tropes, then perhaps it's time we reevaluate what doesn't surprise us in our shows. A psychotic man sexually assaulting his wife on their wedding night is not a trope, and neither is incestual sexual assault. But the slow tearing of dresses, the strong masculine men overpowering the damsel-like female, the quick ending of the scene to heighten the drama and the sexual tension and to cut out the actual uncomfortable, unsexy parts, are tropes. They are more than unnecessary. They are harmful.
According to the media, certain actresses have spoken out by saying, a lot of this show is inspired by actual historical events, and that's what's occurring with women. Women have been treated appallingly in history, and therefore it's important that we represent this accurately. Well, if one is ignorant to the treatment of women in history, then watching a Game of Thrones rape scene isn't going to change that. Violence against women is a problem and has always been a problem, and for many cultures it is normal and expected. Therefore, these scenes are difficult, but not because our culture is uncomfortable admitting that rape happens, nor are we uncomfortable with violence, coercion, or brutality. These rape scenes are difficult because violence is being sexualized, and violent sexual assault is being normalized. We're not being shown rape, but rather the non-consensual control of women, which is at the core of patriarchal fantasies. On TV, male aggression often goes without consequences. I have lost my next page. Oh. In the case of Cersei and Jaime, viewers may have enjoyed watching the very attractive Nikolai Coster-Waldau rip off the equally attractive Lena Headey's clothes. And at first, the scene doesn't seem like rape. But one must give pause and realize she said no. When violence is filmed as something sexy and sex and violence become confused in entertainment, then that depiction perpetuates rape culture. In a country where 1 in 6 women are sexually assaulted, it is time to stop sexualizing and dramatizing violence against women on television. That wraps up our presentation.
You want to lead a discussion, or?
Do you have any questions? Feel free. Or
Anything to say or...
We're not really experts on a situation. We just picked things that we felt spoke to us and we wanted to talk about.
We tried to find another angle, like, as we mentioned in the beginning, because we feel like these are things that are less talked about. Like, people don't perceive plastic surgery as a form of violence, so we thought, for instance, that we could use that kind of thing.
and even verbal violence walking the streets of New York is something that you sometimes have to deal with as a woman, and maybe even as a man, but I would assume so more as a woman. And it's something to think about, and especially if it translates into relationships at home. I think it happens more often than we believe.
I think essentially when we talk about violence against, what I really want to do was also to redefine what it meant to be violent against women. Because when you say violence and you think, oh, physical violence, physical assault, sexual assault, those are the big things, which are terrible. But I think a lot of people don't realize if you only term that as violence, then the number of victims are somewhat shrunk. But if we highlight and realize that all these subversive acts of violence, like not allowing a girl to have an education simply because she's a girl, or the fact that women are more pressured than men to conform to body image issues, that is also an act of violence. That, the more we talk about that, that's what I'm trying to say is that all these subversive acts of violence make us victims more than we realize. And I hate to use the word victim, because then it constitutes certain concepts of what it means. I'm not speaking well, but basically I just wanted to say that violence against women is more pervasive than people realize, because it's not just hitting someone or raping someone. Yeah.
Sorry, you had a question.
I didn't actually have a question. I was just going to just have a reaction to, first of all, that disgusting violent thing that was shown, which was just, I can't really believe that this is what people are regularly viewing. And No, it's not. I'm not blaming you. I mean, I know a bunch of my niece watches. I mean, everybody watches.
It's huge right now. I think it's the best rated show in HBO history for like, yeah.
I can't even believe that this is what is just being taken in as like. I mean, I just know my reaction, which is, you know, I was torn between crying and throwing up, and it was like you've got it. Like I was just going to end, and that wasn't even including the rape that wasn't up there. So, I do think that, you know, to sell a product, we've taken it to a new level, which, you know, and I do think that there is a place for violence in art, and I think that gets often quieted down as too, like somehow this is okay, but when it's real and it's you know, it's like this should have a warning on it, this should not be seen. It's just very strange. Where something that is put out there for real. I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen Beast of No Nation. I mean, that was horrifying in its, you know, in its violence, but it was minimal compared to what we just saw. But it was also loaded with a backstory, and, you know, you were in it, so it really had a meaning and an impact.
My issue with violence in Game of Thrones is that I think the author came out to defend the show, and the defense is usually that because this happened historically, therefore it's justified. And we're just portraying an accurate portrayal of what happened. But in my mind, it's very gratuitous because a lot of the violence doesn't further develop the plot point. It doesn't contribute to character development. It's just violence for entertainment, and that for me is gratuitous and disgusting.
It's also, they always ignore it because when Jamie rapes his sister, at least, let's say you would see Jamie, like, I don't know, feeling bad, their relationship going downhill, or anything like that, and it's never mentioned. It happens, and then in the next episode you see her, like, leading some royal thing, and he's doing his, and it's just, it's not even, it's just there. It's not we're at war and this is gonna happen and then we're gonna see how this changes things. It's just present.
It's funny that you say that, because I think that's also very much part of our society, where in terms of, you know, eating disorders, drug abuse, many ways that women present with, I don't know whether you want to call it disordered behavior or mental disorders or self-abuse, you know, or eating disorders, very often the common thread is abuse. You know, sexual violence or other kind of violence and abuse. So, but at the same time, we are, and women and children, we're supposed to brush yourself off and get on with it. And when women present with these things, it's all put on, the onus is put on the women rather than on, let's focus on what the hell is going on here and why there is so much violence committed against women and girls. That's
You showed the video about the effort 1 Billion Rising. Can you speak to our audience a little bit more about their effort? Are you familiar with what they're doing? I am, but I want to hear what you...
Well, they basically, I was like looking into the whole child marriage problem and how it's happening especially in sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, India. These are the most prevalent countries where this happens, and there's a lot of organizations such as them, and then About a Girl, and a bunch of them that basically, you know, it's firstly about bringing awareness, and secondly about funding, because basically what these children need is the necessary money, because the main reason I was reading about Nigeria, the main reason these girls get married is that the parents get a dowry, and the parents have 8 other kids, and they, like, the main question the parents have are like, what am I gonna eat tomorrow? What are my children gonna eat tomorrow? So these men come along and offer $200, for instance, for the girl. So the parents always say yes. So what these organizations do is that they help out the parents without having to force the daughters into that situation, without having to force the kids to give up school. And I think it's very important. I mean, I'm not trying to be militant for it. I think that's great what they're doing. I'm not trying to be like, oh, let's all, you know, I'm not trying to force anyone into anything. But I think it's very important to have these sort of NGOs that are aware of these issues, you know, in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the
honored to be involved with the 1 Billion Rising campaign and effort over the last 3 years, and it was born out of V-Day, which is Eve Ensler's creation from her work, which started out in Vagina Monologues and bringing together stories about girls and women who, survived the various atrocities and challenges of society's suppression of girls and women. And who here has seen Vagina Monologues at some point in their life? So about half of us. So
you got
out of the
to.
other half who haven't seen it, had you heard about it? Okay, good. If you get to see a local production or even be involved in it, do that. There's all sorts of communities all over the world that are especially in the United States, that are producing these plays. You can participate in them. So Eve Ensler decided about 3 years ago that there had to be a greater effort. She lent the V-Day Vagina Monologues play. She basically allowed it to be free to be used by communities to bring these stories about violence against girls and women to the local communities to open up discussions. But she felt that there needed to take a next step. And so 3 years ago, 1 Billion Rising arose, and it was all about dance, dance, dance. It was about celebrating one's female body and spirit and energy and just being out and just celebrating that. The next year, it was about, I think it was 1 Billion Rising Revolution. It was about, we now need to not only celebrate who we are, but recognize that it's like 1 in 3, I know Karen knows these stats better than me, in the world is like 1 in 3 girls and women experience some form of violence, including these types of violence in their lifetime. 1 in 3. So that, how many of us are here? What is 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 12? So 4 of us either have or will experience it. And I know I've experienced verbal abuse personally. It's just incredible. I think Karen was an early Salon member, and we were doing a painting project in the Lower East Side here, and she wrote the stat, I think for the American stat, it was like 1 in 6, right, or something like that?
Now it's
at
one.
the time?
I've heard a lot of different stats
Yeah,
on it now.
but that was the first time I heard that. It was 10 years ago, and I was just flabbergasted. And since then, now that there's been more talk, and it's just, I know so many people, and it's horrible. And so anyways, 1 Billion Rising, and then this past year, the 3rd year, Eve wanted to link up the topic of and the issue of violence against girls and women, and how basically all other issues that take place in the world affect violence against women and girls. For instance, there was a little mention here that if a father is a farmer and the environment through global warming or whatever has reduced his crops, he gets angry and frustrated because he can't provide for his family. He starts, beating on his wife or whatnot. So, and other issues, political, et cetera, just how all these issues can contribute to the growth and the happening of violence against women. So it was a real important step to raise awareness that it's not just the physical act, or when I say physical act, the actual act, but it's what's contributing, what are the systems around the world, the things that are happening that contribute to that. So that's what 1 Billion Rising has been doing, and it'll be interesting to see. They usually have a heightened activity during March, February, around Valentine's Day. So it'll be interesting to see what type of activities, and it's all over the world. She has things, people, the women, if you go online and Google 1 Billion Rising, you can see some of the videos that people have put together, either their own stories or what the communities are doing. It's incredible. And it helps link up what these young ladies are doing and what Karen is doing with her endangered bodies, which I'm going to have her speak about. Because we always have to have you speak about it. And how, like you say, there's so many great NGOs and groups. Even here in New York City, I was involved with a V-Day production, and funding was, the proceeds were given to 3 local charities that help either like women and girls surviving trafficking or things like that. So there's so many efforts out there. So now it's about not only continuing opening the awareness of the dialogue like we're doing here, but also linking up all that great energy and activity that's happening. How can we link it all up and just have it really spread and have a greater impact? So kudos to you for what you're doing, ladies. And I'd like to have Karen just mention about her group, Endangered Bodies, and that effort.
I actually just want to say one last thing
Yeah,
to what
sure.
you were saying, and just about what's happening now in our society, because of course violence against women is really about, yes, education, the ability for girls to go to school, and also for ability for women and girls to control their bodies. And what's happening in our country now in terms of, fighting for reproductive rights all over again is really a plan and a plot and a way to disempower women. And with that, of course, comes the objectification of women. And I mean, once you limit women's power, then what do they have? They have their bodies. And I want to also just mention about being careful of blaming the victim in these things. And even with the plastic surgery, which I have heard many sides of that argument, and in terms of feminism, in terms of right to be, and certainly what my wish was is that we lived in a society that did not create an environment where women felt compelled to do harm and put themselves into pain to feel better about themselves. So I just think we have to be very careful about targeting the women rather than targeting the circumstance around that. Anyway, okay, so this is an organization, we have a nonprofit organization, it's Endangered Bodies. Everybody can get a sticker before you go. It's all about loving ourselves and the bodies that we're in. And part of what it speaks to is this how we're bombarded by these images of this beauty ideal, which leaves most of us out of the running for, any kind of feeling beautiful about ourselves. Either, the statistics for that is, I think, 98% of women, girls, and increasingly men and boys feel not good enough in their own bodies. So it's a fight against that, and also, anyway, so that's what we have, monthly meetings that it's open to the public, and we work on, like, we've created a billboard, we have a sticker campaign, we're presently creating information and a brochure about the BMI testing in the schools, where they put these little kids on scales and they send them home with report cards where they create all this, negative self-feeling, and kids think they're obese when they're in kindergarten now. And it just adds to the whole eating disorder thing. And so that's something I'm involved with. Also, I'm also a painter, and I paint about sexual abuse and violence, if anybody's interested in seeing some not so pretty images, although they do not compare to anything that we saw that we just watched. But that's what my artwork is about. Anyway, that's it.
Does anybody have any other thing you'd like to add? Doesn't have to be specifically about this topic. Yes.
You go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make 2 short comments. I'm Alla, I'm from Ukraine, I'm a sociologist, and I'm here for the first time, maybe all of you know each other. And my topic is not connected with violence, but violence is what we see every day. I mean, even though it doesn't refer to us. But my two comments. First comment is we speak about Africa, Asia, some distant parts of the world, but violence happens here every day at every moment. And my topic here is not connected, but I study Hasidic communities, which are nearby in Brooklyn. Yeah, and if we speak about, for example, women who are like encouraged, not even encouraged, but the only way for them to have early marriage and many children, it's like one target group that is located very, very nearby. And another point, another comment is that we really spoke, you spoke, you see, I say we, yeah, like, you spoke about this violence which is not physical, about violence of non-understanding, violence of words, and there are many other forms which are very similar to violence, not violence, but maybe something very similar. You said that, have you ever suffered from violence, or 4 of us or 2 of us suffered from violence? I suppose that many of us, if we can regard some situations, we have some situations. And this comment is also a question. For example, 2 days ago, I was with one boy in a cafe, and we had an interview. It was a formal interview, but people in the cafe treated us like we are a romantic couple, and he is the leader, and I'm like nothing. They didn't notice me. Was it a violence or not? For me, it was like a kind of disgust. How could it happen? So many situations which should be emphasized. So thank you very much.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you.
You had the,
Yeah, you know, I see that here in America, you know, we always go to other places. And I've been to states where I've seen older men with younger women because their parents said it's okay for a 16-year-old to marry a 40-year-old. And I see I've also come across folks that in like the Appalachian areas, they marry off their kids really early too. So it's, you know, it's all happening here. But when it, I don't know why we don't deal with what happens here.
I think it has to do with poverty, you said. So
Yeah,
often
well,
it
it's
has to do
also
with
here
poverty
in
and
New
less
York City, you know.
education.
It's a cycle. The cycle will never end because it comes down to the 1%. And it's like the poor stay in the projects. And I've met people that have come out of the projects, but it's hard because when you're like sort of a low class, middle class, what's middle class now? It's just harder with taxes, just, they're like, we're better off poor if we don't have enough to make it over the higher part of the middle class.
I think the reason that violence against women hasn't really been addressed as much here in America is that feminism as a concept and as a culture hasn't really trickled down beyond the middle class educated to the, I don't want to say working classes, but the poorer section of society where most of this violence occurs. And so it's still, when we talk about feminism, feminist issues in America here today, we're focused on issues of workplace equality. Are there enough women CEOs? Are there enough opportunities? Are we getting paid enough? Or are we getting paid similar to men? So those are the issues that we're focused on because feminism is more prevalent amongst our side of society, whereas we haven't really talked much about the lower income women where feminism, they don't really talk about feminism as much. If that makes sense.
Even feminism is disappearing too because the generation, I was born where feminism was like, you fight for your rights and, equal opportunity, everything. But now it's to the point where we're going backwards. And things are changing, but the younger generation has set us back to where we should be so forward in this world right now, in just situations with the style, the way they act. It's, they really are, they get to a certain age where they feel they have to get married to a well-to-do man. It's like they have a checklist now. It's not about them, it's just a checklist of life. And the priorities are really wrong for a lot of these.
I see that as, I don't know, Karen can speak about this too, but I'm 51 and I kind of was born in between feminism, the big, long, or the strong period of time where feminism was front and center. And now where I'm finding a lot of young women that are getting involved in the feminist movement and redefining what feminism is. And when I started the salon in 2008, I just naturally, I had gravitated towards women artists, and I didn't do it on purpose. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, I want to start something that's going to help women. And since I moved here for my art, my long-term boyfriend died unexpectedly. A good friend of ours was shot and killed in the Lover's Triangle. I fell for a woman during that time. I mean, everything changed all within this time, and I set off in my life to do something different. And so when I moved here, I just realized that, wow, there's something really, there's this energy flow that's going on that I'm experiencing, and I was seeing other women experiencing it. And since I moved here for my art, to pursue my passions again, to take back my life, the power that I have inside, that's one of the reasons I started the salon. I know I'm speaking kind of all over the place here, but the main thing is that all of a sudden it dawned on me, it's like, oh, I'm kind of like a feminist. I've never realized, I never thought about it in the past, right? Now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm all about championing women's rights, and it's kind of a late bloomer type of thing. So even though I'm sort of at the tail end of the baby boomers, and I should have been a feminist back then or whatever, now I'm just coming into my own. And I think many women in different generations I'm seeing, especially in the salon, are doing work, artivism, and about women's rights and about how we are going back in time. That's what Karen alluded to earlier as well, that I don't think it's one generation's fault or another, but it's important for all of us women across all generations to come together and just look at feminism as not just one word or one definition, because there's so many things that have changed over the decades. And like what Billion Rising is doing is showing how everything that's happening, and I'm a strong component of the 99% movement, and how it's time now for all the different generations, the different causes, the different socioeconomic stratas, to come together, because we're finally now finding a common ground to beat the 1%, to put it bluntly, to take back the power. And I think we as women, especially, and also as women artists, we have a strong role, an important role, to bring this forward. And I, for one, am just feel really, really excited to be here at this time in the world. I think this is, we are going to either, save the world, or we're going to go down with the ship, so to speak. And I'm just really optimistic that to see all the different generations coming together, the topic, the conversations, different cultures coming together, and what you're doing with bringing different cultures together as well, different races. It's really, really exciting time, even though it feels like, oh my God, it's so horrible. How could we ever make a change? But I think it's happening. The energy is coming.
Time. Like when we study history, we see all these great times of change, but it took them like 60 years, 100 years. It's gonna,
Well, yeah, it takes, historically women have always been suppressed and always been perceived as, lesser than the man, and, as property. And that's always been accepted, and those concepts take ages to change. And in this environment, in this country, when there's fear, everything becomes this kind of conservative point of view. So, family values and this, that, and more conservative, and it again means, more suppression. We need the strong male leader, and, everybody wants that safety that's been ingrained in your head, as, male energy being safe.
I think a lot of it's education.
It is.
And a lot of it is that, I was born and raised in Asia, which is even more conservative than it is here. And it's very normalized. And from a young age, a girl is taught that she doesn't have the ability to ever make enough money to support her own lifestyle.
Yeah,
The only,
generations of
And so when you grow up with that mindset, you think that you're always going to be, you don't grow up believing in yourself, and no one tells you like, oh, you will be able to. The whole mind, it's just find a rich husband, and that's your goal, and that's all that you're capable of doing. So I feel like education is a huge part of that.
I mean, it is, because, you know, genital mutilation is like, well, I'm dirty if that doesn't happen to me. But you're raised to believe that. I mean, any concept, this is what's ingrained in you as a child, and that's what you believe. That becomes your belief system. You know.
It's not until you experience when what they tell you fails. Like all these girls who go through genital mutilation. I read an article about how a lot of these campaigners face opposition from the girls themselves.
Right, because they feel dirty if it doesn't happen.
And they feel like it's a rite of passage, that it's their right to womanhood.
Exactly.
And it's until you go through that pain when you realize, well, it's not true.
It's your belief system.
Yeah.
And unless the belief system is changed,
Yeah.
you know, it can happen at a later time, but you're fighting against someone's belief system, which is ultimately difficult.
I think Karen had one more.
I think that there's so many interesting things that are being said, and I think even with the genital mutilation, there's many arguments about it. Part of it is, listen, white people, get your, leave us alone, let us manage our own stuff. Not so much, and I'm sure that there's also the dirty part, but from what I have heard and what I'm aware of, it's really more about, we don't want other people's values on our society, but I think there's a huge movement right now in the countries where mutilation by the people that are being mutilated, thank goodness, standing up and saying this is enough.
Yeah, I just posted that there was a country, I can't remember, I posted one on
yeah,
Facebook, so if
yes,
you want to
yes,
follow
somebody-
me personally.
they passed a law.
One of the countries in Africa, Nigeria just made it illegal. So I think it's slowly taking effect, because of the open dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, for it to happen, which is sad, but you're absolutely right. Education is the key, because, you got to change that belief system somehow.
And if I could just throw out one little nugget, which, not to simplify everything, however,
Money.
well, not
That's
just follow
my
the money.
nugget. Follow the money.
Well, follow, and that's what we were talking about with the 1%. I mean, if we can take back control from the 1% on all of the different, because the 1% controls all of everything. So, from economic to food to
Education.
health, everything. So, two things I find, and I tell people, I suggest to people, is that we can, as citizens of the world, global citizens, number one is we can take back power through our economic tool. How we buy things and how we consume things, and try to turn off those forces that are telling us to buy this, do that. Number one is we do have the power. We do have the economic power to take back the power from 1%. And number two, for women and women's rights, scare everybody away. We were talking about the 1%. Is and I'm sorry, what's your name again?
My name is Fran.
Fran. Hi, Fran. Talking about women and how we interact. There's a new group called The New Agenda, and I highly recommend that you follow it either on their website or Facebook. It was founded by a college acquaintance of mine, and what she started after Hillary Clinton's first run for president, and how much the media bashed her, and looking aside from the political aspects, but how the sexism and suppression of women's voices, etc. happened. She left Wall Street, where she had a good job, and she founded this organization. And she just realized that women of all races and socioeconomic strata and ideals and beliefs and Republican and Democrat, etc., need to come together. So we as women need to connect with other women and help each other. And whether it's different generations or different, or even within your own family or whatever, but I think we as women, if we connect and we have these dialogues and we start changing those belief systems within ourselves, that we don't have to listen to this and that's just going to continue to spread, and it'll continue to spread to other cultures and stuff by having all of these dialogues. And I think it's just so key right now for women to connect, no matter if we have differences, we speak different languages, we're from different parts of the world, we have different beliefs. It's just so important that women to women and girls to girls and women to women need to initially make that, we need to make that heart connection, we need to make that energy connection. And then also boys and men, they're going to start seeing that, you know, hey, there's some changes that need to happen. And there are men feminists out there. There are men feminist groups. There is a men's 1 billion rising group. I mean, it is happening. Matt, we love you over there. You're the one male, token male in our conversation here. But but you know, it's just, I don't know. I could just go on all night. But anything else you ladies would love to say about? I mean, this is wonderful that you've started this group to bring together different races and different cultures to work together and through theater, and then also, you know, raising these issues and topics up. So anything else you'd like to share with? You have a fundraiser coming up?
We do.
Do you want to talk more about it?
You can talk about it.
Well, I founded the theater company this year, and we're putting up a production of Chekhov's Three Sisters next February, the first week of February, and our concept is to have a multiracial, colorblind cast. So basically, we've cast our show, and everyone in the cast, regardless whether they're related, whether they're sisters or brother, it's all different races. And my whole idea was that as an actor of color, I just got so sick of being typecast in ethnic roles, or being the token Asian, and I just wanted to play a story where I didn't have to explore Asian topics, but just explore topics as a human, as a person. So that was really my whole ethos. We're putting up the play at the New York Theater Workshop's 4th Street Theater, which is down a couple blocks away from here, I think.
Yeah, it's
on
4th
and Bowery.
Yeah.
And we're looking to fundraise. We're starting a Kickstarter campaign in December in about 10 days' time. So do check our website, brooklynrepertory.com, or feel free to email me if you have any questions, like not about donating, just like want to get involved and like find out more, find out about tickets, and yeah.
That's great. And do you see yourselves putting together more of this around the topic of violence against women and girls, bringing more stories together? And
Well, actually, yeah, we were just talking that we had a great time. I mean, great time, but it was very interesting to collect the information, so we were thinking we could develop it into something else in the future.
We had like a day to put this together, so we didn't really go as far as we would have liked. We didn't really explore as much as we would have liked, and we couldn't memorize and practice the acting of it, but we would love to put together more stories and to do maybe a device piece regarding this. So if you guys would like to get involved, also email me. The email's on the program.
great. Does anybody have any things coming up that you'd like to announce, that you'd like us to come to, or project you have going on? Eventually.
And maybe.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I encourage you to mix and mingle and grab a drink from Matt. Follow us. You see on the back of the program, International Women Artists Salon on Facebook is our main outlet right now. But email me if you're interested in joining us. It's all disciplines from architecture and design to jewelry making to painting and sculpture, dance, music, etc. So we'd love to have you join us. Follow us. Get on our radio show. If you're visiting, this is a global organization, so we're connecting around the world. So hope to see you next month, Salon Lounge here at Dixie Place, or on the radio, City World Radio Network. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.